So welcome to Supporting Students in Green Careers, Let's Go Zero webinar, one of our webinar series. We're really pleased today to have Hazel and Jessica, Amy and Terry today, who are going to be speaking to you about green careers and all the amazing work that they're doing. So I'm Alex Green, I'm from the Let's Go Zero campaign, and we are the campaign for all schools, colleges, nurseries across the UK to be zero carbon by 2030. We've been running the campaign for about 3.5 years, and we've got over 3,200 and something schools, colleges and nurseries across the UK signed up, which is just over 10%. So we are delighted to see that that demand is there, and that schools are really being active and really engaging with this work. And we know that green careers is a really big thing for them. So it's something that we need to make sure that our young people are workplace ready. So the workplace is changing and the world is changing. So we need to really be on board on how we're going to do that. You can see on the map there, these are the schools, colleges and nurseries that are already signed up. For some reason, Scotland's been shot off the top. I'm not sure why. But you can see that there's a real spread around the country with a growing demand there. We're really fortunate to be backed by a coalition of amazing organisations. We never try and do this on our own. Our rule is we never duplicate anything else. So there's so much going on, and we can always connect schools through our coalition of organisations, not just to find out the help that's out there, but also to bring their voice in, so that government and so that key decision makers can hear the voices of our school users. We run a whole load of different activities and programs. We do these series of webinars, there's newsletters, there's competitions, there's all kinds of wonderful things. And we have now got a brilliant team of climate action advisors across England. In fact, Paula, who's joined us today, is one of our amazing new climate action advisors. And they are there to help schools to just know what to do and how to do it, and to get them started or further along on the journey to climate action. You can find out more in the Let's Go Zero on the Let's Go Zero website, or get in touch through any of the methods you can find on our website. If your school or MAT is not already part of the Let's Go Zero campaign, then sign up. There's loads of people at hand, so come join our wonderful campaign. We are nearing the end of the Climate Action Countdown, so if you're not already engaged with that, you could do it during the month of the Climate Action Countdown, or you can just pick and choose and do any of the activities whenever you want. So if you're looking for something to be doing with your schools, to engage on all kinds of different areas of climate action, please do take a look at the Climate Action Countdown information. There's loads of wonderful projects and resources and information there for you to use. And that's the calendar of all the wonderful things you do, either on those days or any day you want, to be quite honest. There's a whole mixture of different things. So, pick and choose and really engage in it. We do run various different competitions from times about looking at how we're engaging, and we also have a nature prize, which is giving out funding to do nature projects in schools. So do have a look at the competitions pages on our website as well. I'm whizzing through this because we've got wonderful speakers. I don't want to steal all their time. So before we go, before I sleep, I'm going to leave you with, this is the QR code. You can find out more and all our information. But I'm going to introduce a little bit more seriously our speakers. So first off, we've got Jessica Marshall, and she is the National Environmental and Sustainability Manager for Oasis Community Learning, amazing MAT, which has over 50 schools, and they are doing all kinds of brilliant stuff with their climate action. So really pleased to hear them talk about the other side of the work they do, which is the green skills work that they do with their students as well. So Jessica is going to be speaking first. Then we've got Terry Watts, who is CEO of the Chartered Surveyors Training Trust, and they've got a great program that they're going to talk about how they engage young people and how the built environment is really key in our sustainability journey, and in that journey to net zero, and how young people can be involved in that side of work from a careers point of view. We've got Amy Ball from the WWF, the teaching and community manager, and she's going to be talking about all the brilliant projects that WWF are doing and how you can engage with that and what they're doing with all their partner organisations. And then we've got Hazel Aboa from LSBU Green Skills Hub, and she's their community liaison assistant. She's going to talk about the work that they're doing there. So we have got a real amazing selection for you. So I'm going to, and there's a question and answer session at the end. So any questions that you have, please either pop them in the chat as you go or in the Q&A as you go, and we'll keep an eye on them. But at the end, we'll do a big Q&A session, just with any of them about all kinds of things that they talked about. So I'm going to pass over now to our first brilliant speaker, who is Jessica Marshall. So over to you, Jessica.
Thanks, Alex. Hi, everybody. I'm Jessica. Like Alex said, I'm the National Environmental and Sustainability Manager at Oasis Community Learning. So we're by no means experts in embedding green careers learning just yet, but it's something that forms part of my role to guide the trust on. So I'll take you through where we are at the moment, right from our primaries to our secondaries, and things that we've found kind of useful on the way. So if we just go to the next slide, and I'll start with a brief introduction to Oasis. We go on the next slide. I just thought I would do a bit of a background to us, because there's lots of across. Sometimes it's useful to have a little context. So thank you. We've got 54 academies at the moment. I say that because we might have some changes over the summer. So we've got 30 primaries, 22 secondaries, and then we've got 2 all-through schools as well. We're geographically in clusters, so we tend to be around cities, around England, so we've got a map there. We do have an Oasis curriculum, but we follow closely to the national curriculum, so just a bit of background there in terms of relevancy. We work in very disadvantaged communities. That's part of who Oasis are, and what we set out to do is to transform those places and be part of the wider community as well. So we have community hubs as a wider Oasis family. So if we move to the next slide, I did want to also put a bit of context around why green careers are so important and how they already are linked to existing strategies. So on the left, I've kind of gone from a national level to a trust level, down to academy, and then onto a student level. And so you'll all be aware of the DfE's climate change and sustainability strategy, but in their action area 2, green careers and skills lies there. And we've got a couple of quotes on the right hand side as to where they really pinpoint green skills and careers, and saying that we should harness young people's passion and interest in climate change and sustainability and inspire them to choose careers around sustainability. And then in terms of Oasis, we have an environmental policy, which is the cornerstone of everything that we do for environment. Our policy focuses on 3 main commitments, which are the what. So that's being climate considerate, it's being nature hopeful, and it's being self-controlled consumers. And they tackle the environmental aspects through 4 main hows. And then the one on the screen in terms of our on the right hand side there again is how we do that is through our quality education. And then we also have really strong ethos at Oasis in everything we do, and I'm sure many other MATs and schools have their own values and ethos, but for us, the one that really kind of speaks to this is a deep sense that things can change. So that's something really important in terms of sustainability. And just a bit of community kind of aspect there is preparing students for the future, and sustainability shouldn't just be about geography and science, which we often see, particularly in secondary schools. So we want to make sure that it's completely throughout our curriculum, and green careers is part of that. And I go out to visit academies quite often. And when I go to visit academies, I say I'm always happy to meet with the student eco team, that they're free to ask me anything. And that's a really part of my job that I love. And one question that I got recently from, I think, a 7-year-old was, why do you do the job you do, and what made you want to do something to help the environment? Because I myself am in a green career, obviously, and it's quite an obvious question, but I'd never really been asked that before, and it certainly made me think. So for me, a large part of my desire to have a green career myself was because I grew up being dragged out on muddy walks on a Sunday in the countryside, much to my dismay as a teenager, but also being lucky enough to go on holidays and see different parts of the world, and mostly the natural world and how beautiful that is. And that remains a core driver for me and my passion as an environmentalist in my day-to-day. However, the reason I'm telling you this is that I wanted to highlight this isn't everyone's experience. So in terms of this conversation, we should also recognise that the uneven playing field that our pupils are landing on in terms of their aspirations for the environment and their potential to actually go into green careers and want to go into green careers. So I did mention at Oasis we purposely have academies in disadvantaged communities across the country, and we strive for excellent education, and so that we don't make schools that conform to the stereotypes that their communities would imply. But we know that despite having these academies, so we've got academies in Manchester that right on the doorstep of the Peak District, most students will have never been. We know that litter and plastic pollution is the norm in a lot of areas where people step outside their front door, and they might be living in housing that's really very energy inefficient because of poor standards or really irresponsible landlords. And if you don't see the beautiful environment that's worth protecting, then why would you want to care for it, and why would you want to go into a green career or spend your life working to try and improve it? So I think it's important to remember that it's a privilege to want to protect the environment. And although the DfE's strategy says that young people's passion and interest is there, we can't assume that it is, and we have to really grow this within them. So just wanted to make that point before we move on to the next slide. So looking at our primaries, there are two main ways that our primaries are exposed to green careers. So we have a global goals focus in our spring half term 2, and that's cross-curricular across all year groups. One of our principals, Amelia, recently spoke at a Let's Go Zero webinar about our primary curriculum. So it's worth watching back if you can. And I won't go into too much detail, but essentially the second half of this term is dedicated to global goals from years 1 to year 6. And I just highlighted a few things on there. For example, within history, they talk about various people. So you've got Mary Seacole and Florence Nightingale, which were more on the social side of sustainability. But then you've also got individuals like David Attenborough, and they might talk about people like Greta Thunberg as well. And that's where they start to kind of get an introduction into people and green careers, and also change maker activities where they can apply their learning in more hands-on projects around the academy, and in doing so apply their green knowledge and those skills that they've started to build up, which I think is a really nice way of doing things. And then perhaps where it becomes a bit more explicit in using words like green jobs is when they go into Careers and Futures Week. So again, it's across Key Stage 1 and 2, and they do this in each year group, so right down to year 1, and you can see kind of the structure of that on the right-hand side there. And how they do that is through some short videos shown by normal people doing certain careers. And previously, this was fairly well-known jobs like being a nurse, being a firefighter, a teacher, but this year for the first time we introduced some green careers videos. So I reached out to various external organisations and I asked them to answer a few questions and film themselves doing that. So we now have some videos from Amy, who's on the call today, from WWF. We've got a video from the Wildlife Trust. We've got Sodexo, which is our caterers, talking about kind of food-related sustainability roles, and Bug Life as well. And we also have links to other external resources. So there's some really good ones on BBC Bitesize and even the IEMA Green Careers Hub, which I'd definitely recommend for secondaries. And really, it's just to kind of create exposure to a wider variety of jobs at this point and this stage of education. There are a lot of these jobs that really didn't exist a few years ago. So it's really trying to link them to these new careers and also the subjects in which they might like to do, which lead on to those. If we can go to the next slide, please. And I'll start to talk about secondary. So in terms of the curriculum, we're starting our exposure in what we call PD, personal development, and that's where careers education sits at Oasis primarily. So back in March, we did some teacher training with the WWF Sustainable Futures programme, and I mentioned that careers in sustainability are changing all the time, and new jobs are growing and changing along with the needs of people and our planet and our economy. So the staff that are teaching the students about this really need to be adequately equipped on this too. So the PD leads did the 90-minute training with Amy to support them with this. And it's not just a training session, but it's got supporting resources which they can then go on to use in their classrooms and adapt their lesson plans to do that. And they've just started to do that this term. And they said that it's been going really well, which is really good. So we're also trying to link in with other subjects in the curriculum too, so kind of RSHE, and not just the kind of traditional geography and science. And at the moment, this is taught in year 7 through kind of tutor time as part of active citizenship. Year 8 and 9, it's done in citizenship and political learnings. And then we also have year 10 and 11, it's a bit more of a formal kind of careers education, so it features in that. But I just wanted to mention also trips as well. These are done at a local level, an academy basis at Oasis, because it's very much depending on what's in their locality. But for example, at Oasis Oldham, they have an eco week, and as part of that week they have representatives from Chester Zoo come in and speak about climate change and sustainability, and then they go on a trip the week after that to Chester Zoo and kind of put those principles into practice and get to see things in real life. So that really helps connect the dots, and it obviously takes them out of the classroom into a different environment, and they can see some of those careers that actually are sustainable careers, which is really, really important. We also have something called the Oasis Way, which is a real, like a holistic look and inclusive education. And that's starting to look at personal development as well in terms of how we develop this through things like outdoors, nature, well-being links, which Forest Schools is a perfect example of. Again, that's a way of developing green skills in a practical and more applied environment rather than kind of the traditional curriculum type ways. And then I'll quickly run through the last slide because I'm aware of time's probably ticking away. Which is a bit more in secondary, so external input. So this is around kind of those ways outside of the classroom, so things like mock interviews and work experience, again organised quite at a local level, but we use our existing links, community links with that. And then on the right hand side, I've just kind of tried to highlight that actually geographically, as we work in sort of clusters, there are some real green career hubs in different parts of the country. So there are ways that we can link into things like work experience and local opportunities and national partnerships. So for example, up in the northeast, they have a lot of offshore wind, so we can link into the companies and organisations that are working on that. Whereas kind of more in the southwest, we've got more of the nature-based roles. So again, like getting that geographical context and linking to what's in the community around you. And getting people to come in and speak. So some of those screenshots at the bottom are where we've had someone from the government coming to talk to about sustainability. And then we also linked into other things that we've got going on in Oasis hubs and things like that. So we celebrated International Women's Day, and as part of that we had someone from the STEMet, I think it's called, Anne-Marie, and she came to do a talk to inspire particularly female students around STEM subjects and linking that into the green careers and the careers they can go on to within that. Next slide, please. And I think this definitely is the last slide. So just a very quick point on, don't forget about your national team. If you are a MAT that has a national team as well, in terms of green careers and skills, you might not naturally think of them, but there are groups that we've trained up internally because there are those green skills that are needed more and more now within different roles. So obviously my role completely focuses that on the day-to-day, but like our property and estates team, they're managing buildings that actually we need to look after in terms of green sustainability and looking at saving energy and water and all sorts of things. And they would have never had any formal kind of training on that. So actually upskilling those types of groups is really important as well, and just sort of another way to look at things. So I will leave it there because I'm conscious of time, but I'm looking forward to questions at the end.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we can hear you now, Terry. That is amazing. So thank you very much, Jessica. I absolutely love the fact that you are linking the careers that are relevant in the area that your schools are based. That's really, I haven't seen that and heard that before, and that is wonderful. So we're going to pass on to Terry. So Terry, I think is going to, luckily Terry, you've got amazing slides. So I think we're going to go with you with no comment.
Can you still not see me?
Oh no, we can see you now. We can see
Yes.
you either very still or you're
Excellent.
frozen. But
I'm not sure that's a benefit really.
See your wonderful slides.
Good stuff. Okay. Well, thank you very much for
Over to
having
you.
me. Okay, thank you. It's Terry Watts, the Chartered Surveyors Training Trust, and I'll give you a quick introduction to the CSTT because I think that's important, and then we'll move into what we're trying to do. And it does very much build on from Jessica's activity. What we're trying to do at the Chartered Surveyors Training Trust is to weaponise the millions, not quite millions perhaps, but hundreds of thousands of professionals who work in the built environment to be advocates and to be confident to go into schools and talk about careers in the built environment, and particularly green careers. So I think we're all on the same page, and we should actually talk outside this, Jessica. So thank you for your presentation. So next page, please. This is just to say, the previous page was just to say that we're a charity. So and I can't stress this enough because people think we're looking to make money out of you, and we're not. We were a charity set up in the 80s, did a lot of work to try and get more apprentices into the built environment, particularly then focusing on surveying. Our remit now is the wider built environment, and our job is to try and make sure people are aware of the built environment as a career destination, and then provide support to those who are having barriers or facing problems in trying to enter it. Next page, please. And those of you who don't know the built environment particularly well, then why should you? It's one of the biggest sectors in the country. It employs about 3.2 million people, which I think is about 11% of the workforce. 420,000 companies, which is one of its problems. There are no big companies. What you think of as big companies, perhaps like Balfour Beatty or Mace or McDonnell Douglas and those sorts of people, not McDonnell Douglas. It's Robert McAlpine I'm thinking of. I always mention them, I don't know why. They're very big companies and they look big companies, but they subcontract an awful lot of the work. So actually they don't necessarily employ more than 10 or 15,000 people typically. The sector is going through massive change. It's forecasting 250,000 new people needed in the next 5 years, and that's thought to be a conservative estimate. And it's actually vital to the society that we live in. And this is why I think I'm a bit passionate about, so forgive me if I go off on one of it. It's a sector that creates the environment we live in. It's the thing that builds our communities, keeps it together, makes us feel secure, and enables us to invest our savings and build our houses, but also to have a nice, well-being life and have a community where we feel we belong to. It also establishes the infrastructure we need, the roads, the railways, the airports, and everything else that we need. And I'm being hurried along that. Okay, and it's responsible for 42% of all human CO2 emissions, 32% of all landfill, and of that, 62% of all waste, 32% goes to landfill. And the reason why it's so important is because of what it provides to society, but why we need young people to think about it is we need more people to try and help us reduce that 42% and reduce that 32%. And that's why so much focus in the sector is about green jobs and making the sector more environmentally responsible, and so we can continue to develop our built environment, continue to build the houses, but do it more efficiently in terms of the environment. Next page, please. What's coming next? So the sector is in need of lots of people, as I said. The problem we have with it is that people aren't really aware of it. Young people think of, and parents and teachers think of, the built environment. They think of it as being construction. And there's actually a lack of awareness of most of the jobs that are emerging, particularly those which are related to green skills. And the sector isn't particularly good at promoting itself. If you live in central London, you'll find people from the built environment queuing on the block to come to your careers fairs. If you live along an HS2 node, such that they are these days, you'll find the same thing. But if you go to somewhere, and I always use my hometown of Abingdon, just south of Oxford, as an example, 3 secondary schools, 1,000 people, students in each one. The only person who's been there in the last 10 years from the built environment is me, because the sector doesn't naturally outreach and talk to people about it. Having said that, it's facing all sorts of skills shortages and gaps that are emerging, and it's becoming more difficult. And it's just beginning to realise that because it's a male-dominated sector, it still is, and it's also not particularly well represented in terms of ethnic minorities, then it needs to actually reach out a lot more. And one of the ways of doing that is to recruit a new generation of young people who will represent the communities we're building for in a far better way. And I've left on there just as you can look up these figures if you like in terms of where the shortages are. It's an amazing website called LMI for All, and it's supported by the DFE and the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors. Show me where it was. You put in a job category and it'll tell you the number of people there. And if you look at this one, there are about 71,000 surveyors in the UK, and it says here that we need 54% of those will be retiring by 2027. So we need a lot of people. So it's a very male-dominated and aging workforce, people of my age rather than the young people we need to get on board. So there's an awful lot of opportunity for young people there. And the thing that I try and bring to the attention of young people, if you do want to address the issues facing us as a race and the society we live in, and environment is important to you, you can probably have a lot more effect by becoming a quantity surveyor and taking your green credentials and your care about the environment and the community that you're supporting into that job, and you can make sure that the buildings you're producing or the roads are produced in a way that reflects the needs of the built environment, the natural environment rather, and uses the resources you have more efficiently. Next page, please. I feel like the guy from the pandemic, James Whitty. Oops. So, and the way I like to think of it, and this hopefully will chime with people who are involved in careers, is construction is a very important part of the built environment, just as coding is part of the tech sector. When I was a young man many decades ago, people didn't want to go into the IT sector because it was all about writing programs, and it tended to attract those young men, not like me fortunately, but like those young men who lived in the basement of their grandmother's houses and lived on pizza. You know, the stereotype. And now it's called the tech sector, and some of our best and brightest and most creative and most entrepreneurial people are attracted to the tech sector. Do you know what? The sector hasn't changed. They still have programming to do. They still have data centers. They still manage big, huge server farms. A lot of the things that I did way back in IBM, back in my early days, are still done. But because of the ubiquity of the tech sector now, people have got a completely different perspective of it. And the tech sector is not as ubiquitous as the built environment. We need people to think of it as something they can change. Many of the young people you work with won't have seen change in the built environment because why would they? They're not old enough unless they happen to live by a big development project. So why would they think it's changed? There's so many careers that they can take to go into that, to do that. And as also Jessica said, a lot of the jobs that we would be talking about today the green jobs don't actually exist yet, and they're always being improved upon. And I've got some pictures here which might ring true. People think of the built environment, as I said, of being bricklaying and plumbing and all that sort of stuff. But here you see the lady on the left there, she's working on 3D printing. Some of the panels in Crossrail, if you happen to be in London, were printed rather than, they're made of concrete, but they were printed. So there's some work going on there. Robots are increasingly being used in the off-site manufacturing of panels and parts and components that go into buildings. It's quite normal now to have virtual realization of new developments. It's the guys in the middle there with their headset on. That's quite normal in the sector. Off-site manufacturing is something that's beginning to be almost against the wishes of the industry. Really. It's a bit of a conservative industry, but actually off-site manufacturing is becoming more ubiquitous as well. And they see a young lady working in a factory. And that's quite important because you have a completely different working environment in a factory than on site because of the exposure to the elements and things. And drones and all sorts of technology. And people don't inspect buildings in the way they used to, put up ladders and go and look at roofs. Drones do an awful lot of work for us now. And all those resources, all those bits of information about that we make available to young people. So moving on. Next slide, please. Oh, and I missed my punchline. 6% of students, according to our polls, recognise that the built environment is something they might want to work out before they do our schools programme, which I'm about to tell you about. 75% would consider it afterwards. Not that they'll all join it, obviously, but they have at least that opportunity to discard it if they don't want to. Next slide, please. So this is what the programme is. It's called My Environment, My Future. And the big red box, it's all free, it doesn't cost you anything to do this. All you need to do is register on the website, which I'll give you, and it's at the end of the presentation. It was a series of resources created in collaboration between teachers and surveyors of the sector, because we started with surveyors. And what it does is it looks at GCSE geography. I know, Jessica, we want to go beyond geography, but geography is a good place to start. GCSE geography has an urban environments module, and A-level has a human environments module. And in all the major awarding bodies, they're pretty similar. And we've developed a lesson plans, and we've mapped to the curriculum. So we've mapped the lesson plans to the curriculum. So it's all in teacher speak, and they would understand how to use these materials straight from the box. We provide presentations filled with resources that can help teachers bring the lessons to life and bring careers into the classroom. So if you look on the picture on the right-hand side there, there's an image of a graph. It's a bit small, but it's one of our presentation graphs. You see where the lines cross, that's 2007. And about then, more people in the world, not just in London or in the UK, but in the world, started living in urban environments rather than rural environments. Quite a milestone, really, and that's talked about in the geography curriculum. What isn't talked about quite so much is the impact that has on the urban environments and how we need to make sure that we build and design those urban environments for the growing population that they need to support. And that's where we build in careers information and talk about things like that needs more town planning, you need more quantity surveying, you need more architects, designers, engineers, and so on to help understand what that built environment is going to look like. So it brings careers information into the classroom, and it also, in doing so, helps achieve Gatsby 4, 5, and 6, which is something that hopefully we'll be able to do. And the idea is that a teacher can pick up this, a geography teacher can pick this out of the box and just deliver it without having any preparation, because it's the curriculum they've been delivering and they would be familiar with. Equally, we can get a local built environment professional to come in and talk to the class about some of the relevance and bring those jobs to life, if you can explain what they do and how they might work, if that's what the school would like us to do. A bit more about that in the competition. And finally, we link all of our materials to Skills Builder. We've been told a lot of schools use Skills Builder, and it does help you recognise that in doing some of this, you're building some of the softer skills that young people need, as well as the curriculum requirements. Next page, please. Oh, that's the mapping to the curriculum. And so once we have done the work they've done in the classroom, we offer a free competition, which you're allowed to enter. Anyone can enter, anyone at secondary level, so it goes down from years 7 all the way through to years 13. We asked them to look at a local site near them and how would they redesign that local site or space to meet the needs of their community. And we always ask them to look at sustainability, but the year just gone, in fact, the announcement of the winners was earlier this week. We asked them to do that considering well-being in the built environment. Next year's theme is going to be building for a sustainable future, not just because I'm here, but because of something else I'll tell you about. But and we have lots of interest to that. Some teachers, particularly if head teachers come across us, they tend to pick on the competition first, and we end up with teachers delivering that, and then they go on to the classroom curriculum and some of the materials we have there. And we don't mind, we don't care what they do with it, they can do whatever they like with it, as long as they introduce the idea of the built environment. And we are finding that teachers are being more innovative than we'd have thought of, because we are teachers. And we have an award this year for 2 schools, one of which has involved the maths and the art department with the geography department to design the solutions that they've come together to work on. So it goes across curriculum. And another school which is doing an amazing thing up in Brighouse in Yorkshire, and they've actually linked it to a project where the local authority are funding some of the activities and designs. And the bottom of the screen there, you can see a low flat building. That's one of the pictures of an external classroom, outdoor classroom that the children have designed for a damp area of their playing field, which isn't used for anything else. And the local authority are finding funds with local employers to build that as a result of working on this competition. So there's some really amazing things coming out of it. Where we're leading to next is sustainability clubs. A lot of our teachers, and I don't think I've said yet, we've got 589 was yesterday. I'm hoping we'll have got 590 by today. Teachers registered to use My Environment, My Future in over 300 schools. And a lot of those teachers are the ones who are asked to look at the green or the environmental or the climate or the sustainable, whatever they call it, club inside the school. And last year we piloted a series of workshops which can be delivered by the teachers or by a sixth former to try and help them understand and investigate different aspects of sustainability in the built environment in more depth. And then we ask them to sort of find out about it, debate it, think about it, what it might mean to their school, their community and themselves, and then act. And we ask them to produce action plans. And we piloted it last year. It was really successful. So we're now just on the verge of starting to build the 48 club workshop pages that we need to do. And the idea is it will be delivered starting from September. So it's kind of, we're trying to move quickly, having got the go ahead from my board to do it. We're going to try and deliver it as quickly as we can. And again, it's free. Everything is free. Next page, please. Oh, a bit more animation there. That's the school's competition information. So I've mentioned 589 teachers, 300 schools, 75% of students say they would consider the built environment, and 90% understand the importance of it better. All of the schools we work with have said they will continue working with us. It's not a bad experience, so hopefully they'll do that. And to be honest, you can use it in home economics, in RE, we don't mind. The idea is to get built environment careers and green careers, particularly in front of young people. And we've had 1,000 young people enter the competition in the last couple of years. So we seem to be getting there. And what I'm keen on doing is, and why I'm here, is to get more and more schools to help us do that and to improve it and to make it more effective. Next page. Oh, well, there's a couple of pages here which I won't go through, but there are some interesting testimonials from those are some of the teachers who've worked on the project. And one of the teachers said they've increased the number of students wanting to do geography by 15%, which, if you're a geography teacher, is quite a good thing, I suspect. So that's a good thing. And then some of the students' comments. And there's one more page now. This gentleman, Max, he was part of our pilot group. So before we launched My Environment, My Future on Unexpected World, we did a pilot with some schools, and Max was one of those youngsters who was inspired by what we did. And when you get the presentation, you click on that and he'll tell you that it's led to him becoming a built environment project manager in Mace in Bristol. So it works. It's very hard, as you will know, to try and find a longitudinal example of where someone you worked with when they're 15, what they're doing when they're 18. They don't always come and tell you, unfortunately. So we're very pleased to have found him, because he's a pilot group, and it shows that the actual thing follows through. And I think that's me. Is there anything else here? Might just be a list of contacts. Oh, so as well as the CSTT, we do have a history of working with apprentices and things. So we have resources, and we're just rebuilding the CSTT main website to show how you can enter the sector through a traditional route, which in surveying or engineering is usually through a degree, and then you do a specialist degree, and then you go and find a job, or through apprenticeships, and how the differences work for there. We see ourselves as providing the top of the funnel of interest in the built environment. We want to do is partner, tell other people, tell the schools rather, if you like this and it works for your youngsters, there are lots of really good programs out there that will help bring home those messages and explain to them in more depth what goes on. And so we partner with anyone who will do that, and we introduce lots of other schools programs into our schools. And we have a network of careers professionals that we can bring in. So we've managed to get professionals in this year to Scotland, into Brighouse, as I said, in West Yorkshire. So wherever you are, we can probably find a surveyor or an engineer or an architect to come and talk to your school. Surprisingly, few schools have asked us to do that, but we can do that. And we are also building a series of relatable case studies, which will be on our website. And if you give us them, we'll point to anybody else's, because all the materials and resources we have tend to exist elsewhere. We fill in the gaps if they aren't there, but we point to those resources because teachers don't know they exist, students don't know they exist. We're just signposting them to everybody. And I think my next page is my last page. And that's where to download. Go to that website and you can download there. And that's me.
Thank you very much, Terry. That's amazing. And so much to offer there. So that's really brilliant. So I'm hoping that Amy is there, although I can't see you on your video anymore. She's back. So we'll go straight into Amy.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Amy, and I'm the Teaching Community Manager at WWF. And I'm going to be talking about our Sustainable Futures programme. And it's for secondary students, and I'm going to be talking about why it's important to prepare young people for future net zero and sustainable jobs market. So next slide, please. So a lot of you will have probably seen this image before. It's called the climate stripes, and it was developed by Professor Ed Hawkins at the University of Reading. Essentially, it's a really good diagram for just showing how quickly our climate is changing and how quickly it's warming up. The bluer colours represent cooler temperatures and the red colours represent warmer temperatures. And it shows the history of our climate going back to 1850. And you can really see how quickly that it's changing. It's kind of just to show climate change is not a slow process. It's happening very quickly on our planet. It's actually happening over the course of decades. And 10 of the warmest years we've had in recorded history have happened in the last 10 years. And since the 1850s, our temperatures on Earth have risen by about 1.2 degrees. I feel like I'm feeling that today. It's very warm today. And scientists worldwide agree that we really need to limit this warming to 1.5 degrees so that we have a chance of protecting our vital ecosystems and limiting some of the damage that we've done. Next slide, please. Yeah, so you might have seen those climate stripes before. You probably haven't seen these ones before. They're not quite as popular yet. Hopefully they will be. But these are showing biodiversity. So if we do another click, a description of biodiversity should come up. Fantastic. So biodiversity is the variety of all life on Earth. It's all the animals, plants, fungi, microorganisms, everything. And it's what makes up our natural world. And it's all of those things kind of working together in all their different systems that really underlies the things that we need. We really need our food systems, our clean water, our medicines, our shelter, and it's all underpinned by our biodiversity. But unfortunately, our biodiversity is not doing very well. And these stripes show that we're losing our biodiversity. The grey colours mean we're losing biodiversity. And over the past 50 years, we've actually lost around about 69% of our biodiversity on Earth. It's only in 50 years. Next slide, please. So this biodiversity loss and climate change, they are completely linked together. We can't really solve one problem without the other. And this diagram just quickly explains one of the ways how if we start destroying ecosystems, maybe by deforestation, we start to make those ecosystems less able to absorb carbon. That means more carbon gets pumped into the atmosphere, and that then sort of exaggerates damage to our ecosystems. So it's really important that we solve both of these problems. It's not just about solving nature loss. It's not just about solving climate change. It's really solving both of them. Next slide, please. And another click as well. A blue box should come up as well. Fantastic. So one of the things that can help with this is net zero. And our government, the UK government, is signed up to reaching net zero by 2050. And that means balancing the greenhouse gases we produce with the greenhouse gases that the Earth can absorb through its oceans, its forests, its soils. At the moment, we are producing a huge amount of greenhouse gases and we're leading to climate change. But we really need to reduce those greenhouse gases by 2050 if we're to meet this net zero target and limit that warming of climate warming to 1.5 degrees. We need to reduce our carbon emissions by around 87%. And that's going to need big changes. So we're not currently doing this. We need to change the way we do business. We need to change the way we work. Trying to reach this net zero is going to create new jobs. It will change existing jobs. And potentially change the entire way we do business, like how in the 90s, with the sort of wider use of the internet, that completely changed the way we do business. It's expected that net zero is also going to have a really, really big change on our jobs and all future jobs that Gen Zs are going to end up doing. Next slide, please. So it's not just about reducing those emissions and nothing else is important. It's really important also to consider sustainability. And at the moment, our rate of consumption is not sustainable. We're consuming far too much stuff, using it far too quickly. We're not leaving enough for future generations. Even not even thinking of future generations, currently there are people around the world really suffering from the effects of climate change and nature loss, and the fact that we're not living sustainably. And sometimes sustainability can be kind of confused a little bit with being just environmentally friendly, which is a really important part of sustainability, but it's about meeting all of those areas and kind of being in the middle of that diagram there. So for something to be sustainable, it has to provide benefits to society, it has to be efficient, economically efficient, but it has to also minimize damage to the environment. So we really need to be living in the middle there. And if we only do kind of one or two of those things, that's not a sustainable option. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah, so Gen Zs, they're very concerned about the future. They are worried about climate change and they feel the burden of this on their shoulders. But Gen Zs in the workplace, so Gen Zs at the moment are aged 12 to 27, Gen Zs in the workplace, less than 20% of them think that their employers are actually doing anything substantial to try and tackle the sustainability climate change crisis. And 1 in 3 of them would actually reject a job offer if the company that they were applying for didn't have good green credentials. And that is so much higher than in other age groups, where it's more like 1 in 5, 1 in 6. It's a third of all Gen Zs would actually completely reject a job offer if the company wasn't being sustainable, they didn't have good green credentials. Next slide, please. Yeah, so it's predicted that there are going to be lots of more green jobs. I think both Jessica and Terry mentioned it, and I won't go through all of the different ones, but there's predicted to be some shifts in how jobs work and how sustainable they are. So it's predicted that they're going to increase in kind of the more obvious green jobs, maybe like Jessica's job as a sustainability manager, things like working in renewable energy, they are going to increase, but also things that you wouldn't maybe necessarily relate to sustainability, maybe like working in HR, working in design, those jobs are going to need to have sustainable skills in them. Jobs like maybe oil, gas, boiler engineers, they're going to transition. And people can use the skills that they gained learning to do those things, but they're going to transition into more sustainable technologies, maybe like installing ground source heat pumps. And then the fourth one under there is completely new jobs. So it might be things in like carbon capture that haven't really even started that much yet. It might be in hydrogen storage and using hydrogen, for fuel. There are loads and loads of new green jobs, and they're going to exist across a whole range of different sectors. And our kind of key messaging is that any job can be green. It just depends what skills you have and how you approach how you can approach it in an environmentally conscious way. Next slide, please. Yeah, so just bringing it back quickly to the UN Sustainable Development Goals, I bet if you can think of any career, any job right now, you can relate it to one of those Sustainable Development Goals. Every single job can be sustainable. Again, it's just how you apply your skills to make the job sustainable, or the task that you're trying to do, how to make that sustainable. Next slide, please. So, onto our Sustainable Futures programme. It's a free programme for secondary age students, roughly between the ages of 14 and 18, but I'm aware of schools that have used it for slightly younger and slightly older students as well. And it's designed to try and address the need to equip young people for this future job market, where jobs are going to need these green and sustainable skills. It's also not to push any sort of specific career. All jobs can be sustainable. It's about students making choices that are good for them and also good for the planet. And our key message, as I've said a few times, is that any job can be sustainable. Next slide, please. In fact, let's skip this one. Go on to the next one. Yep. So that is an overview of the course. So it's a course, sorry, I'm very warm today. It's a course that is developed with the idea that teachers would lead it, or careers leads, or a facilitator. But we are working with Unifrog at the moment to make a student-led online course as well. But at the moment, the course is broken down into these 3 units. What is sustainability, which is all about kind of learning about what sustainability means, the Sustainable Development Goals. Then module 2 is about sustainable business. So how does sustainability relate to business areas? What is the circular economy and why should we be trying to get to that? And then the third module is about the students themselves. How can they be sustainable in their lifestyles? What's important to them and how can they make that sustainable? And how can they shape their own sustainable career? Whether that's if they've got the whole thing mapped out, some students do, they know what they want to do from like age 10. Some students have no idea, in fact, most of them. So it's not about them having to know exactly what career they want, but it's about taking the small little steps, planning those next steps, and making sure that those can be sustainable as much as possible. Next slide, please. So the course has all been developed with these future skills, which were, I think the National Foundation for Educational Research came up with these future transferable skills that are going to be the most important transferable skills for Gen Zs entering the workplace. And all of the activities in the Sustainable Futures course are designed to develop at least one or more of these skills. So they're broken down into like analytical skills, interpersonal communication skills, kind of resilience and motivation skills, and like leadership management skills that kind of cross-cut everything. Next slide, please. So we've worked with Founders for Schools, and they have a free platform that you can use. So in addition to using some of these resources, which are all free on our website, and our resources contain a teacher handbook, which is all scripted, so you don't have to be an expert. Like how everyone's been saying, we don't want it just to be amazing geography teachers that are teaching this. That's fantastic if you do, but we want it to be accessible to everyone. We think sustainability is a really important thing for all students to learn about. So yeah, we have a teacher handbook, we have all of the PowerPoints are available, and we have a student reflection journal as well. But as well as that, we partnered with Founders for Schools, and you can get free careers talks. If you go onto their platform, again, free to use, you can filter by loads of different industries, and you can also filter by who wants to talk about sustainability in relation to their job. And you can just go on really quickly, it takes about 5 minutes, and book someone to speak. You could do it online, or you could invite them to your school. So I would really, really recommend if you do anything, go on to Founders for Schools. It's completely free and it's really, really good to get careers talks. Next slide, please. And just a little bit about school delivery. There's lots of different ways you can deliver. All schools are different, and what works for one school might not work for another one. But really, we don't mind how you deliver it. We just want you to take advantage of the materials if you can. So some schools might deliver the materials as like a whole careers day. If you have a whole day dedicated to careers, you might deliver the materials there. You might deliver them in personal development, PHSE time. You might deliver it in bits of the academic curriculum like science, geography, but there's also good overlaps with economics and business studies and maths as well. Or you might deliver it in eco groups. Lots of schools like to deliver it with their eco groups. So that's just kind of a show of how you can deliver it. And yeah, some next steps: download the resources. They're completely free. Decide on how you might want to embed them in your school, and sign up to our education newsletter if you want to. The QR code there will take you to our newsletter where you can find out about all of our events and resources. That's me done.
Thank you so much. That's amazing. And I've let everyone run over time. This is being terrible at sharing, but you're also brilliant. I'm just going to let you all have as much time as you want. We might run out of time for questions, but that's all fine. So now we're going to stop sharing our slides, and Hazel's going to share her slides. So last but not least, we've got a brilliant presentation coming from Hazel. So if we stop sharing, and then perfect. Off you go, Hazel. You unmute yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hazel. So I'm the Community Liaison Assistant for the Green Skills Hub. So I'm just going to give a short presentation on some of the kind of career pathways that one can go through if they were to consider a green skills job. So first of all, I'm just going to give you a bit of an introduction as to who we are. So we're part of the Mayor's Skills Academies, and we're funded by the Greater London Authority until April 2025. So how we operate is we operate in 3 boroughs. So we operate in Lambeth, Lewisham and Southwark. And our aims are to get as many residents as possible into green jobs and also courses which will be green in nature. And this is just a list of some of the demographics that we tend to focus on when we are promoting green skills and green courses. So some of the sectors that we work in include green construction and retrofits, waste recycling and circular economy, water management, green energy, green infrastructure, including EV charging, and also green transport. So this next slide just looks at a range of green careers that people can go into if they were to consider a green job. So the first one is retrofitting. So there's a high demand for retrofitting at the moment, and there are currently courses which are being developed to give people an insight into retrofitting. And it's all about thinking about how you can make a building more energy efficient and more sustainable. You can also be a heat pump engineer. So rather than looking at kind of like gas boilers, some of our boilers will be replaced by heat pumps. So that will make essentially it will make pumping water more efficient. So again, it's looking at energy efficiency. Another role you can go into is a sustainability manager. Also, you can go into science roles as well in green skills. So you can be an environmental manager, where you create you create solutions for environmental issues through the use of chemistry, biology, and soil science. You can also become a nuclear engineer, and you can become an agricultural consultant. If you're interested in the graphics and designs, you can become a landscaper, or you can become a green architect. And if you're interested in horticulture, you can become a tree surgeon. So there are currently city and guild qualifications for horticulture. And if you're interested in English, history, or law, you can become a policy lead, or you can become an environmental or energy lawyer. This is just a careers tree that was created by South London Partnership. So it gives a bit more of a broad overview of some of the roles which you can go into if you're interested in green skills. So my role, which is a community liaison assistant, is actually listed there as a community engagement officer. So if you're someone who's interested in more admin kind of networking roles, you can become a community engagement officer and you can promote green careers and green courses to local residents. So one of the projects that we started was a virtual work experience program. So the aim of the virtual work experience program was to get people in the Tri-Borough to think about how they can kind of raise their knowledge of the green sector and green skills. It's open to anyone aged 16 plus, and the videos are on demand for another few months until autumn term. So some of the modules that we look at are the path to net zero, retrofitting and reducing energy demand in buildings, low carbon heat and energy, green new construction and construction industry, green infrastructure and building a green economy. And this is available through the SpringPod website. So I've included a link here if you were interested in looking at the on-demand videos. And this is just a section on how you can contact us. So we're based at the Passmore Centre on Borough Road. We also have a website where we advertise all the latest courses and also job vacancies, which may be of interest to you. We also have a LinkedIn and Instagram page as well. And that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you, so Hazel, and so all of you. That's really amazing. I think Hazel's really sort of really summarised it brilliantly in the fact that every job, no matter what you want to do, we can find a way to make it a green skills job. Even if you want to be a lawyer, you know, I think that's a really good way to think about it. There's a way that we can integrate green skills and net zero and the whole concept of sustainability into every area of every bit of work. So thank you very much to our panel. We're not going to have time for questions, but if you do have questions for either the Let's Go Zero team or any of the panel, please send them through to Let's Go Zero on any of the Let's Go Zero emails. So this is recorded, so you maybe are watching this on a recording. If you are, all of the links from those from the slides and the links to the different projects that our speakers have talked about here with the recording. If you're watching it live, you should get this in a week's time on the recording as well, and it'll be available on our website. So just a big thank you to all our speakers. Thank you so much. It's been amazing, and well done for all of the great work you're doing. Keep it up. And we look forward to watching the different programs that you're running continue to grow and develop. So thank you very much.